Welcome to Faith to Lead. I'm delighted that you're here today. Every time that we gather and we get together on these sessions, it's exciting because right now in the world that we're living in, we need great leadership more now than ever before. So I got a question for you. What process should you immediately start when you become a leader? Now, you may have been a leader for a long time, maybe emerging leader, contemplating in leadership. And with many of us, we come with many preconceived notions as far as what it means to be an actual leader or to be a good one. But the question I have for you is, what should you be doing? What are some of the key things that you should be looking out for? But before we jump into that, I want to give you some fresh statistics. Every time that we gather, it's always fine and good to know exactly what's going on in the world that we're living in. And this is a survey that just came out from the Philadelphia Fed in April 2025. And in this report, they're saying that people are striving for economic stability more now than they ever have before, and that they can consider opportunities for upwards mobility despite sometimes working multiple jobs, and people are trying to find ways that they can make ends meet. In other words, they want economic stability more than they want economic mobility. How can they think about getting ahead or being promoted in your company or being part of a big team when they're just trying to make things work for them in their day jobs right now, trying to get different situations met? And a greater percentage of people believe that right now they need to find a better job to become better actualized. So sometimes we as leaders, we're saying, how come I can't get more out of this person? They're not as enthusiastic as I am. It's because they're just right now in their world, they're saying, I got to get out of here so I can make ends meet. So this is kind of the global picture about what's going on in our society right now with all the different changes that are happening globally and locally and within even the Philadelphia metropolitan area. This is how people are showing up and they're coming into your job and coming into work. And this is what they're thinking about before they go into your team meeting. So we're going to find ways that we can turn that around, how we can get greater commitment, how you can have a better team, better followership, so that your team can perform the way that you want it to do. So I want you to go ahead and share this podcast. You can subscribe to Faith to Lead. Let someone know about the things that we're talking about. Visit us at faithtolead.com because we're going to unpack all of these different insights so that your team can make sure that it's being insured against all of these statistics. Now, let's start off with a little bit of scriptural text. I love going to the Word. Remember, this is Faith to Lead. So we look right at the Bible, pull out some nuggets, see how it's applicable to our lives. And there's a scripture in Proverbs chapter 29, verse 18. My father always made sure that I knew this scripture. And it says, where there is no prophecy, in some translations it says, where there is no vision or where there is no revelation, the people perish or the people cast off restraint. And what it basically means is that every person in every team, every organization, every community, what they're looking for is a sense of vision. Where are we going? How do we know we've succeeded when we get there if we don't have any predetermined notions about where we want to be? Are we going, on a one-day journey? Are we going on a one-year journey? And when people don't have a sense of direction or a sense of vision, then they don't get a sense of direction. And when a person or a team doesn't have a sense of direction, all of a sudden everything goes. What are the rules of the game? I don't know. We'll make up the rules as we go. We'll figure out, where we're getting when we get there. And so if you don't have a sense of vision, it means that you'll never have a sense of completion. You'll never have a sense of alignment and never have a sense of rules as far as guidelines. What are some of the do's and don'ts that set our corporate culture? So as a leader, you want to make sure you're at the forefront, you're championing the vision casting, vision sharing, vision defining, and vision restating processes of your team. Don't miss that. So today we're going to hit all of those different aspects, and we're going to start this conversation, this dialogue on 6 essential functions that you have to do now that you're a leader. Now, before we jump into these 6, don't get overwhelmed. All right. Sometimes I'm a consultant, and when I get into these meetings and people say, wow, that's a lot. There's no way I could do all that. I'm not a good leader. No, don't get overwhelmed. These 6 different things can happen at any given moment, at any given time. It's a process. I'm going to say it again. It's a process. You don't do them all at once, and you're going to do it over and over again. So I'm going to, if you think of it kind of like a clock, That's the way I'd like to do it. I'm going to narrate through this wheel. The first is to set the mission, vision, and values. As a leader, if you think of a clock right around that 12 o'clock hour, right around 12, one of the first things we've got to get done, we've got to know what the mission is, what the vision is, and what the values are. That is a high-level leadership function. Setting the mission, your mission is, why do you even exist? What are we here for? What does this company exist to do? If we were to disappear, what would happen to the rest of the world? Would it even make a difference? And so you want to have a clear sense of why you even exist. After you know what your reason is for existence, you now have to set the vision. What does it look like? Think of your vision as something that appeals to all of the senses. What will we look like? What will we sound like? What does it feel like? Here's where you can let all of your creativity and your artistry and your analogies begin to explain your mission. In 5 years, we will look like this, sound like this, bring this to our industry, bring this to our community. All of those answers and those words speak to your vision. And your values, that's your ideals. What are our beliefs? What are the rules to the game? Does anything go? If someone disagrees, if one person on your team disagrees with someone else on your team, how do they handle that conflict? Can we shout? Can we scream? Do we handle it? Do we not handle it? Is sweeping it under the rug, is that part of our culture, or is it dealing with it up front? What's our views on new technology? Are we highly innovative, where we say whatever the new thing is, we need to master it? Or, at the other polarity, are we saying, we value consistency? Let's use the same thing until the wheels fall off. All of those different ideas and competing thoughts and interests, they speak to you the values, how you get from here to there. So you want to have that handled. There's that leadership function. What is our mission? What's our vision? What's our values? Another process you want to discover is your drivers. Your drivers are, what are we good at? What are we bad at? What are some of the core competencies that we bring to our industry, to our team? I could tell you right now, as a leader, I struggle with that. If someone were to say, Aubrey, in the organizations that you run, what are you good at? I struggle, because sometimes the things that I say that we're good at, others will say that really isn't your strength at all. I'm being honest with you. And other times, things that I think, well, that's not that big of a deal, that say that's your strength. So often discovering your drivers, it involves the help of other people. For other people to come to you and say, you are good at this. This is what separates you from every other company, every other team, every other leader, every other organization. These are the things that make you go that no one else is doing, saying, or bringing to the market like you are. So sometimes discovering your drivers means you're going to have to go outside of yourself, your own thoughts, your own implicit beliefs, and say, what do you think we're good at? So that's a second part of that. If you think of that right around that 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock part of a clock. So the first was set mission, vision, and values. The second, discover your drivers. The third is create business strategy. Your business strategy, if you will, that's actually all the practices of your team, how all your processes. Have you ever had a person in a team meeting and when you're talking about vision, they look bored or they look stressed, but they say, how are we going to do this? Where are we going to get the funds from? What are we going to do first, second, third, and fourth? That's your strategy. So when you think of the processes, think business strategy. The next, if you think of that right around that 4 o'clock hour, remember you have mission, vision, and values, then you have discovering your drivers, your business strategy. Then you have developing your leadership strategy. And this is where some people get confused between business strategy and leadership strategy. Leadership strategy involves your people. Business strategy is your processes. Your leadership strategy is who's going to lead what group and what team and what part of and what aspect of achieving this strategy. Leadership strategy is all the personnel problems. Well, that's a great idea, but we don't have the people to do it. That's a great idea, but the people we have to do it don't want to do it, or they don't have the skills to do it, or they don't have the training to do it. When I look at a team of 10 people, 4 of them are on the cusp of retirement. How are we going to answer filling all these gaps and needs after they retire? So when you look at all of that human resource and development side of things and the actual people, that's your leadership strategy. So often, let me stop right there. When we get into vision casting experiences or strategic planning projects, and we start off talking mission and vision, invariably, I'll see someone starting to get stressed. And they'll say, this is all great, but it'll never happen. And sometimes people will look at that individual and say, you're not contributing anything to this discussion. You're casting water on this idea or this thought. And that's not their intention to bring a damper to the visioneering process. But what it is they're uniquely suited to develop leadership strategies. They don't see the people. They don't see the resources. They don't see the funds. They don't see the discussion about, what will be the structure of leading and guiding this change and bringing this idea to fruition. Is this just a conversation or will it really happen? And so often what it is it's not that person isn't a good leader. It's that they bring a unique competency to developing the leadership strategy. So that's very important. So it's not that they're the wrong person in the room, just know where they fit on this clock. So developing leadership strategy involves of looking at your people, your human resources, and seeing what they bring to the team. The fifth aspect of this, if you think of this like right around at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, that's execute, perform, and learn. Now here you get into the nitty gritty. What is the action plan? What's the scope of work that we have to do? What's the schedule? What are we going to do on Monday? What's the budget? What's the resources? It's dealing with the allocation of all of your resources, implementing that work, implementing the plan, performing the plan that was set from the business strategy through your leadership strategy and being guided by it. And here's the key, and learning from it. Learning means you have to assess it. You have to have your analytics, your KPIs, your performance indicators, something that's predetermined to help keep the score of, are we winning? Are we doing what we wanted to do? Are we achieving what we want to achieve? One of the essential functions of a leader, and when you're working through this guiding team to work through this process, is predetermining what you're going to measure. What does success look like? How many people are we looking to reach? Which areas are we looking to reach? Which communities are we looking to reach? What are we trying to achieve by the end of the first quarter, the second quarter, the third quarter? These are leadership functions, and you want to have some kind of metrics so that when you get to this stage of evaluating and of performing and of learning and of executing, that you have something that you can look back to and measure yourself periodically, quarter after quarter, so you can see how you're doing. The last, if you look at this, think of this as a wheel, and you get right around to that 9 o'clock hour, it's to assess the internal and external environment. That means you have to look at, how are our people doing? How are our teams doing? The people that I put into leadership, are they thriving in those roles of leadership? When we reevaluate our leadership strategy, is it working? Is that the right leadership strategy? Is that the right business strategy? Did we really meet the right, drivers? Are we really meeting the need that we set in this vision and this mission? How are our values doing? Do we need to redefine some new values? And so you're going to assess how your internal organization is doing. And you're also going to assess how well the external environment is doing outside of the organization. Are we still meeting needs that the community is bringing to us? Is our industry still relevant? Are there some things in our industry, and as far as legislation and government and technology, is there some new things coming now that we should take into assessment as we look forward and into the future? When you look at that assessment of internal and external environment, it's so important. I'm going to tell you a little story. Every once in a while, and I lead a church. I also lead a couple nonprofits. We can get caught in a routine. This is what we do day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. And sometimes we say, well, if we're hitting all of our expenses, if we're meeting our goals, all is well. But every once in a while, we're presented with some kind of societal shift, COVID for us was a societal shift. When you look at really some of the new presidential administration we have right now, it's causing a shift. Whether you like it, love it, doesn't matter. There's new ideas, new thoughts. The world is changing, which means the environments are changing. The lending communities are changing. The approach to technology is changing. And if you don't have, and this is so important, a way to periodically go back into that environment and say, what's changing? What are some new things that are coming down the pike that our team, that our organization needs to be ready for? If you always have your head down and into the sand, but you're not always scanning that environment, looking forward for that vision, remember that? Where there's no vision, the people cast off restraint. How can this environment be managed and stewarded in a way so that we can thrive, so that we can excel? How can we turn this around for our advantage and for our benefit? You need a way where you can periodically, whether it's quarterly, annually, I like to recommend at least annually, look at things internally and externally and recalibrate yourself. Why? Because each of these 6 aspects that we just looked at, setting that mission and vision, discovering your drivers, creating a business strategy, developing your leadership strategy, executing, learning, and performing, and assessing the internal and external environments, they don't just happen once. After you run through this process, it's going to keep going on and on again. I encourage every organization that I work with and work through that you should be looking at these things at least every 3 to 5 years, setting, where are we going over the next 5 years? What will it look like? And then you should be scanning and then redefining, restating, even if you're to say something like the vision that we have still stands, even restating it and saying that is important. That way it keeps you from having your head down and just saying what we've done is what we'll always do. Because at that point, you can miss some major societal shifts. And I want to tell you, I'm loving this conversation. I do this all day, every day. I do classes, I do consulting with individuals, but I love the fact that we can just gather right here and talk on Faith to Lead about some of these principles. And so I want you to do a couple of things. Share this podcast with your team if necessary. Share it with a friend, another leader who says, I don't even know where to start. You can subscribe to this channel. You can send in your comments on faithtolead.com, because I want to see out of these 6 areas where you think you're the strongest in or where you're the weakest in. And if there's some other areas or some other comments you have, let us know it. So make sure you share this channel, that you can subscribe to it, and that you can talk to us right at faithtolead.com. When you look at just those 6 aspects of leadership, if you look at the 6 essentials, if you will, 6 essential leadership functions, you'll see something, a pattern. And there's a lot of scholarship written about this. And one of them is, what separates the quintessential leader from the quintessential manager? Is there really a difference? Are they at odds with one another? How do you know when you have a visionary leader and you have to say, okay, that's a great vision, now get out of the room so we can get it done? And what stresses out a visionary leader more than anything else? And when you look at all of these 6 functions, I'm going to give you a couple clues that a few scholars have pointed out. And they'll say, strategy is where your visionary leaders tend to meet your quintessential managers. That the vision setting, your leadership functions tend to thrive there. But your avid planners and your avid managers, sometimes the pie in the sky, where we're going in 10 years, doesn't appeal to them. They want to set things down on a schedule. What's the scope? What's the schedule of work? And what's the budget? How can we allocate the resources? How can we, dedicate and steward the people that we have? So the intersection of that action plan and that, macroscopic vision tends to be the strategy. So what you'd want to do is bring all those people together for a strategy session. Here's our vision where we want to go in the next 5 years. Let's try to figure this out. And then in that strategy session, you're not actually creating the action plan. You're just creating the roadmap of how we're going to get to vision to the action plan. And right there in that room during that strategy session, that tends to be where a lot of those skill sets come to bear, where they can reconcile with each other. Then you can know the exact individuals that need to exit, those that need to onboard prior to going from strategy to the action plan. That's a very important step. I just boiled down, weeks and months worth of consulting work in that one conversation. So make sure you share this or you subscribe to this. You can check it out. This is what consultants do. Actually, some consultants probably don't want me to even tell you all this, but I want you to have it for free because it's essential. Now when you look at all of these 6 functions, if you will, I'm going to back up again. It's setting the mission, vision, and values, discovering drivers, creating your business strategy, develop your leadership strategy, perform, execute, and learn, assess the internal and external environments. And you're going to go around this wheel over and over again throughout your leadership experience. Don't get overwhelmed. There's no one person that's a leadership Goliath who can do all 6 by themselves and champion a team through it. It's an excellent area to delegate. Personally, the area that I'm the weakest in is probably in the evaluation. I don't mind setting vision or helping with strategy. I just don't want to go back and grade people and work with the indicators. So I have to delegate that to someone else who handles all of our analytics. Find the areas that are outside your skill set and delegate it. You don't have to do it. You just have to be the champion of it. And one of the great things you can be is the best cheerleader of these leadership functions. So find out of the 6, the one that you're the best at, or the 2 that you're the best at, and then delegate and onboard others that bring on those skill sets and say, we're going to do this as a guiding coalition to ensure the leadership of the team. The last thing I'm going to drop into you today, it's what happens to a person when they're experiencing this kind of leadership. What's the goals? What are we looking for from the people that follow us? And there's an acronym that's called DAC, D-A-C. Don't miss this. I want you to write this down. This is what you're looking for from your team. The D stands for direction. Everyone that follows you should know the general direction of the team. If someone's saying, where are we going? You need to stop and answer that question. People need direction from you. The A stands for alignment. Alignment is, okay, there's 10 people on our team, 5 people on our team. If all 5 of us are going 5 different directions, it means we're not aligned. If we have 5 different approaches and we're at war with each other about the approach, that means we have a need of leadership to help bring us into alignment. So they got to get direction. You're trying to get alignment, everyone agreeing together in a collaborative way about which way we're going, what we're going to do first, second, third, and fourth, and feeling good about it. And the C is for commitment. This comes out of the Creative Leadership Center. It's an awesome resource. And that commitment, it's literally the people that will say, you know what, I'm on for the ride. I see where we're going. I believe in it. And not only am I going to agree to it, I'm going to say that I'm on board. And if it gets difficult down the line, I'm going to stay on board. A lot of people, they have a challenge with commitment today. They'll make a decision to say, I'm with you. But then as soon as things get harder than they anticipated, they'll say, well, I didn't expect all this. I didn't know I was signing up for all this. So I've got to make a mid-course direction. I'm going to pull out now. That's a commitment failure. When we talk about commitment, we're talking about people that will say, I'm going to be on board with this. And even if it becomes harder than they initially intended, they'll say, I gave my word and I'm going to follow out the commitment that I made. When you find individuals like that are capable of extending that commitment, that's a very special bond. It's precious, safeguarded, treat it well, reward it. Let all your reward mechanisms show these are some people that have demonstrated a level of commitment that our team applauds. You want to make that public reward commitment, because if the people on your team have a strong sense of DAC, of direction, of alignment, and they're willing to commit, your team will perform. So if you're in that leadership cycle, it doesn't matter where you are, take a look at this, man. I want you to go ahead and share this podcast. You can subscribe to this channel, talk to us on faith2lead.com. See those areas, these essential functions. It doesn't matter if it's a global organization you're running or if you're a startup. If you're contemplating leadership, you will engage each of these 6 aspects at some juncture during your tenure. The best decision you can make is to say, I'm going to excel at it. I'm going to do great. So revisit this, take a look at it, do all the research you can, connect in with us. We'll get you there. Because just remember, if you have the faith to do it and you put in the scholarship for it and you really take the time out to say, I'm going to excel in these areas, your team will be better for it. Thanks so much for checking us out today, and we'll see you next time on Faith to Lead.